Welcome to today's edition of the Rush 24/7 podcast.
Principle, they're not there to work with anybody to get things done. The Democrat Party exists and the media to wipe out Republicans, including Trump. It's no more complicated, and that's why I cringe when I hear people like Lindsey Graham and John Kasich talking about reaching across the aisle and working with Democrats. That's not the solution here, because the Democrats are not going to do anything that improves life for anybody, except maybe marginally among their constituency base. But even then, they won't do it if they think Trump's going to get the credit for it. Anyway, greetings. It's great to have you here, Rush Limbaugh, at 800-282-2882, the email address lrushbo@eibnet.com. So, you know what the media soap opera script for today is? It is get rid of Devin Nunes, the chairman of the House Intel Committee. Now, I know this may get tiresome to some people, and I know that I oftentimes have to caution you that it requires repetition to really instill a point into people's minds. But I cannot help but play the old game, what if this was Obama? In this entire Devin Nunes and Russia and Trump intel story. For instance, well, okay, let me set the table. The Democrats want Nunes to recuse himself from the House Intelligence Committee. He's the chairman. They want him to go because they think, because he went to the White House a day before he shared some intel data with Trump, that he was up there colluding with Trump, even though he's denied it. Even though what he did is no big deal whatsoever. They're trying to scandalize all Republican behavior, and they want him to recuse himself. And they're mounting pressure on Nunes to do this. He says he's not going to do it, thank goodness. Republicans are becoming known as the recusal party, so I'm glad that Nunes is hanging tough. But what if this were Obama? For instance, what if there was evidence that the Bush administration had sicked the FBI on the Obama campaign in 2008? Take everything that's happened, move it to 2008, and change the players, and we learn that George W. Bush had called up his buddies at the FBI and told them to start gathering information, wiretaps, whatever, intercepts on the Obama campaign and then the Obama transition. And what if the Bush FBI and the Bush NSA had incidentally monitored the phone calls of Obama's aides and even Obama himself? Meaning, what if the Bush people had targeted foreign bad actors, and those bad actors happened to be in touch with members of the Obama transition team, as was always the case, and so incidentally the Bush team picked up intel on some of the Obama people, for instance, like Eric Holder, who was going to be Attorney General. Or if they had been spying on James Clapper, who was going to head up the Office of National Intelligence. Imagine if the Bush administration had been monitoring the phone calls of Obama's aides, and maybe even Obama himself. And what if that information was carefully preserved by the Bush administration and then shared with 16 other intelligence agencies around the world, including some of those run by foreign governments? And what if some of the names of the Obama people were illegally unmasked, as Michael Flynn's name has been? What if there were 2 months of stories in the New York Times and the Washington Post? I take it back. What if there were 2 months of stories on Fox News and here on this program reporting leaks, intelligence community detailing the actions taken by Obama administration and transition officials? What if, let's keep going, what if the head of the House committee investigating all of this were to come up with further evidence of this monitoring and this illegal unmasking, and went up to Obama and then to the press with his news? Do you think the media would be furious with that guy? Do you think the media would be demanding that he resign? Do you think the media would be ignoring the rest of the story? Do you think if any of this were reversed, the media would be piling on Obama, demanding explanations of Obama, demanding that Obama aides resign, demanding that Obama aides recuse themselves? Do you think the media would take up and defend the George W. Bush people for the leaking, defend the George Bush people for spreading intel over 16 agents? Do you think any of that would be happening? Do you think the media would be ignoring the story? Think the media would be ignoring any bit of intel produced that cast shadows over Obama, transition, and administration officials? No. If all of this had happened in 2008 to Barack Obama, it would have been 100 times bigger than Watergate. It's the only way to look at this. These people are literally out of their minds with hatred and opposition and disgust. And one of the reasons why, have you seen the latest economic news? There's all kinds of it out there. For example, Ford Motor has announced that they're going to expand 3 plants in the United States. They're going to spend $850 million in one plant to add the Ranger and Bronco SUVs to their line. Do you know what the most purchased vehicle in the country is? How do you know that? How do you guys know that? You've been peeking at my show prep this morning. The Ford F-150 pickup truck is the #1 selling. How many of them do you think are in New York City owned by Democrats? How many of them are driving around Washington, D.C. or Boston, owned by Democrats? Do you think Chuck Schumer would be able to recognize a Ford F-150 if he saw one on Fifth Avenue in Manhattan? Would Chuck Schumer and his constituents get in the Ford F-150 to go to Tiffany on Fifth Avenue for a shopping spree? The people that drive the Ford F-150 are the exact people the Democrat Party has kissed off. White, working class, and even some African Americans buy the Ford F-150, but working class people. The Ford F-150, the largest selling truck in America, and there's not a Democrat that'd be caught dead in one. There aren't very many Democrat elitists who would even recognize one. But if they saw somebody, say, from Valdosta, Georgia in one, they would start cracking jokes about, hey, look at that. Why, there's Deliverance on wheels. I'll bet you there's a gun rack in the back of that Ford F-150. You get my point here. Why are you frowning at me in there? Because you've never looked at it this way, have you? You use the Ford F-150 is the most purchased vehicle in America, and there's not a single Democrat elitist who would be caught dead in one, and many of them wouldn't even know what one is if they saw it, if it drove right by them. I mean, there's so much in this statistic. I mean, it illustrates how the Democrats are out of touch with the people they think are their constituency. It illustrates how out of touch they are with anything outside of Washington or New York. And it's these kinds of vehicles that they want to get off the road with climate change rules and regulations, using the EPA. It's these kind of things that the Democrats are happy if they are manufactured overseas, happy to get them out of America. They're an embarrassment. Pickup trucks? No. We like mass transit. We like trains. We really love trains. We like light rail. We like late rail. We like anything the Europeans do. We like skinny, pencil-neck people who couldn't blow over a grain of sand if their lives depended on it. Those are the smart people. Those are the people we rely on. We don't want people to drive around in pickup trucks because you know what's in pickup trucks? Dirt and excrement and stuff from the farm. And they tow stuff and they get dirty and they get muddy, and so we don't want any of that in our lives. And so they're not surrounded by it. And now Ford has announced the expansion of 3 different plants in the U.S. This is all happening because of Donald Trump. And Donald Trump's voters love it, and they support it, and they don't care about Devin Nunes other than they don't want him going anywhere. The Trump voter doesn't think that Devin Nunes has done anything wrong. The Trump voter fully recognizes what is happening to Devin Nunes and what's happening to anybody that the Democrats target, and they are all about defending them and defending Trump. The Democrats know all of this. The elected Democrats in Washington, they know all this. I have a story here in the stack how the Democrats, they're still doing postmortems after the election, and they finally have gotten down to what went wrong with their polling. Why did their polling so mislead them? By the way, not only is Ford expanding manufacturing facilities, but because of this announcement, and the fact that the GOP had a meeting today about health care, and the GOP leadership came out. You had Ryan and Kathy McRogers and a couple others, and they came out there and they said, we went back, we had a big meeting today, we want to unify our caucus. We don't know when, but we're going to go back and attack this. Health care reform and repeal is not dead. We can't stand by, let this implode. So they clearly stated that it's not dead. Don't believe what the media says. We're going to try to come back to this sooner than you think. The stock market had a quick response, went up 60 points based on that press conference alone. It was already up because of the Ford announcement. The details in the Republican press are they're all saying they're getting rid of Obamacare, still on the agenda. Some in the camp that was voting no are willing to work with everybody to get it right. They're going to try to figure out how to get it done. They have to deal with Senate rules, which is always a roadblock. It means they can't just pass a straight up and down, do everything under reconciliation, because not all of it was passed. You know the drill on this. There's Senate rules they have to account for in crafting legislation. Mo Brooks, who was a member of the Brooks' Freedom Caucus, right? He came out and he said, you know what, it's just a one-sentence bill. Let's just repeal the sucker. Let's repeal the sucker and any regulations that were written at the time or have been added. Just repeal it. Vote right now. Just repeal it. He wants the bill brought out, gets a discharge petition, so it can be voted on. This is the kind of thing, these are good signs. These are good indications that people in the House get what's going on. They say they're moving on to an aggressive agenda, still working on repealing and replacing Obamacare. They said they want to become a unified majority. They're going to talk more to each other to do that. You can believe it if you're not. You can poo-poo it. You can say, yeah, what else are they going to say? I understand. But this press conference, you can see the stock market react to it, as well as having reacted to the Ford announcement. Consumer confidence has soared this month to its best reading in 16 years. Consumer confidence in March soared to the highest level in more than 16 years, according to data released today. This is from the Conference Board. They've kept this index for many, many moons. Here are the numbers, although they don't mean anything by themselves. The Consumer Confidence Index now at 125.6. It was 116.1 in February. That's coming in well ahead of the MarketWatch compiled consensus of 114.1. Here's the news. The consumer confidence, all these numbers have taken off since Trump's election, and they took off again after Trump's inauguration. And this is based if you get into the internals of why people are saying they are more confident in the economy, the prospect of lower taxes and more infrastructure spending. Lower taxes. Did you see how much money was collected in property taxes? What was it? I forget year. $560 billion was collected in that's state and local money. $560, $500 billion. There is no way the people of this country are undertaxed. There is no way tax reform cannot and should not happen. The Conference Board's new Consumer Confidence Index is way up because Trump voters, and well, even more than Trump voters, believe tax reform is going to happen, so it had better. And they're also happy about the Infrastructure spending. You say, well, Rush, that's big government. No, I tried to explain this to you, folks. I don't mean to sound uppity here, but as a rock-ribbed conservative, let me just put it this way. As a rock-ribbed conservative, I understand completely why even conservatives are in favor of Trump's version of infrastructure spending. People are intrigued by the concept of public-private money partnership, number one. They're also intrigued by the fact that it might actually happen. A Democrat stimulus bill to rebuild roads and bridges just goes to unions and Planned Parenthood and other Democrat constituencies, just like business fines go to left-wing activist groups. People that voted for Trump believe if he appropriates money for actual infrastructure repair, that's what's going to happen. And they think it's needed. They think roads and bridges are in disrepair in too many places, ditto airports. They're all happy for that expenditure of federal money because it constitutes jobs, improvements, modernization, and any number of good things. You know, there are people that believe that some government expenditures are worthwhile, particularly those that only government can do. Conservatism does not mean opposition to all federal funding all the time or to expanded federal funding in every instance. Expanded federal funding to buy votes? No way. Expanded federal funding to put more people on dependency welfare program? No way. Expanded federal funding to get people off welfare, teach them to work, rebuild roads and bridges? Bring it on. There's a return on investment. Demonstrable, you can see. The Republicans have better not screw this up. Even after this health care debacle, the people that voted for Trump have not abandoned him. The Democrats still can't figure out why they lost. They're getting closer. I'll tell you the details of what they have discovered investigating their own polling data. And, folks, we have also some very heartwarming stories, such as in Italy. Look for this to happen here not too long. A push is being made for, have you heard about this? Menstrual cycle leave, as well as maternity leave. Don't doubt me on this. And it times right with that story last week that men can now have them. In the LGBT community, there are male menstrual cycles, so it all fit to screw Ted Cruz and Jeb Bush out of the nomination. You know, you can barely find that story. It happened on the Democrat side. Hillary Clinton, Debbie Blabbermouth Schultz ran a scam to deny Bernie Sanders a Democrat nomination. The hacks, the Podesta emails prove it. They've never denied it. I don't even think they've apologized to crazy Bernie. Imagine if somebody discovered that Trump had worked with Priebus to do that on the Republican side. You wouldn't stop hearing about it. Those two stories would be all over the news, bigger than Watergate ever was. This is one of the biggest examples of media sleight of hand, this whole Trump-Russia thing that I have ever seen. As they investigate the forces behind the party's stunning losses in November, they are still doing their postmortems. Now, what they're doing now, by the way, they're inching closer, although they'll never get there, but they are inching closer to examining what really happened, which is that they lost. Now, they're never going to get there because they're never going to give up the notion that Trump cheated by colluding with Putin and the Russians. They don't really believe they would have lost if it hadn't been for that collusion. And they're out there, and this is part of the daily drive-by media soap opera and media sleight of hand, is the effort in the coverage of all of this intelligence news. That's the narrative and the foundation they keep pushing, that Trump is illegitimate. But deep down, they know it isn't true, but they would never admit this publicly because they've got their base wound up so tight and they've created such expectations. Their base, the Democrat base, really believes Trump's going to be impeached. Maxine Waters is out there talking on television last night how it's going to happen. They're going to impeach Trump. They're going to get in jail. Trump's going to end up going to jail. They got their base thinking that this is very possible. So they're winding these people up and they're creating all these expectations, and they can't back off of them now. and maintain any kind of decorum or order within the party. Their base genuinely is sick. You know, let me illustrate that this way. Are you aware of all of the talk from people like Bill Gates and Elon Musk and what's his name, Stephen Hawking, about the very real fear they have that artificial intelligence is going to wipe out humanity if we are not careful? Have you seen those stories? You have. Good. They're everywhere, folks, particularly if you spend any time reading tech news. Elon Musk and Bill Gates and Stephen Hawking are gods to techie millennial people. And whatever they say is, and so is Bill Nye the Science Guy, to show you how screwed up these kids are. These four people are infallible. They are as close to religious figures as millennial leftists will acknowledge. And they're out there daily warning of the dangers posed by artificial intelligence. Now, you say, well, what's artificial intelligence? Well, think robots. I mean, basic artificial intelligence is Siri in your iPhone, or whatever they have at Google. What is it? Cortana? No, that's Microsoft. Alexis, the Microsoft, the Amazon thing. All of these assistants in these various operating systems that you can talk to, dictate to, ask to find you things. That's a very, very rudimentary artificial intelligence. But it's being invested in daily. It's being explored. It's being expanded. Self-driving cars, like Uber's had a couple of crashes lately. I don't understand this. Who in their right mind right now would put a self-driving car out there with passengers in it, literally in traffic? We're not there yet. But we're on the way. And these are people that want us to get there so that you get in your car and you don't have to drive, because your car can stop at every stoplight, see every stop sign, avoid every pedestrian, avoid every potential accident, drive at the right speed at all times. Massive, massive amounts of data in software to make this happen. That is artificial intelligence. And when you get into robotics, and I don't mean butler and servant and waiter, waitress kind of robotics, but real robotics that takes over some jobs and leaves people forever unemployed, because the robots never get sick. They never have to have leave for menstrual cycles unless you build a menstrual cycle into your robot. I'm not making that up, by the way. There actually has been proposed in Italy. Hang on, I'll give you the detail. Menstrual cycle leave. You know, every time you think the left has reached the limit, you have to realize there isn't any limit when you're talking about deranged insanity and lunacy. Well, here's what I'm most afraid of. You know, sometimes I watch Tucker Carlson's show on Fox at 9 o'clock, and Tucker's format is indeed unique. Tucker, in either his first or second segment, will have on a liberal closely associated with whatever news or controversy of the day is. If it's something going on college campuses, he'll find an eager beaver spokesman to come on and defend it. If it happens, whatever it is, he'll find, and usually these are millennials, sometimes in their 40s, he gets these liberals on, and it's fascinating to watch. They're all products of universities. They're all so-called educated people with degrees, and it is amazing how they are incapable of original thought. In practically every interview of this type that Tucker Carlson does, his guests are simply reciting a single study that proves their point, that has been drilled into them by a professor or by a fellow activist. They do not literally hear what Tucker Carlson says. They hear buzzwords that connect with the knee-jerk reaction they've been programmed with, and it's a fascinating thing to watch. We already have robotics. My point is, we've already got artificial intelligence. It's called liberalism. The real people we should be afraid of in the world today are the people universities are churning out. And you can see examples of it every night with Tucker Carlson. You can see it in the comment section at Twitter, at Facebook. You can see these people everywhere. They're the most arrogant, condescending excrement holes you have ever engaged, and they don't know anything. But they think they do. They think they know everything. They think they're smarter than you are. They think you're stupid to boot. In addition to them being smart, they're smug and they are condescending, but they don't know anything. They have not been taught anything. They have been indoctrinated. They have been propagandized. And it's fascinating to watch. And that's artificial intelligence. These people are the genuine robots in our society today. These are the mind-numbed robots that American education has been churning out, in the case of millennials, since daycare. I saw this analogy the other day, and it makes perfect sense, even though I never went to daycare, because my parents would not have sent me there, even if it had existed when I was a kid. My mother would no more farm me out to a bunch of strangers, even if they did know them in a small little town. There's no way she would have farmed me out. Maybe my brother, but not me. And maybe he was. I was too young to remember. No, we were neither of us farmed out to daycare. But if you take a look at these millennials, these snowflakes that genuinely cannot handle, they cannot emotionally, intellectually deal with people that disagree with them. It's daycare. You're looking at 18 to 21, 24-year-olds who have not progressed beyond daycare. And in daycare, you're protected and cared for like the 3 or 4-year-old that you are. You don't know squat. You don't know anything. Your mind's a skull full of mush. And you got these so-called teachers, whatever they call them at daycare, bending and molding and flaking and forming these young little brains. And this is the end result we get. And they are not learning critical thinking. They're not learning any thinking. They are sponges. They are mind-numbed robots. They're soaking it all up. That's the artificial intelligence that worries me. That's the robotics that worries me. Not whatever is happening in the world of high-tech robotics. You know, this business of the machines devouring humanity and taking over humanity, that's been part of science fiction since the beginning of science fiction. Have you ever stopped? Look at the Matrix movies. For those of you who have not seen them, how best to describe this? The Matrix is a giant computer program, and we're not real. We are computer software, bits and pieces created by the super intelligence in the machines to entertain them. So cancer isn't real, death isn't real, because we aren't. Deja vu, the experience where you think you've been there before, is a glitch in the computer. Deja vu is considered to be a computer glitch in the Matrix machine. Nothing's real. Do you know how many stories in the last 6 months I have read written by millennial tech people who think we are actually not real and are living in a giant computer program put together by superior beings and machines, and all of this is being done to test us, to entertain them? It's not a mass movement, not majority, but there are enough of these young people that believe this to give you an indication of how they're being educated. And this whole idea that the machines are going to take over. You know, liberalism is, in one sense, a series of conflicts and contradictions. On the one hand, the animal rights people will say a man is a mouse, is a titmouse, is a frog, meaning we're no different than the lowest forms of animal life. On the other hand, we're so damn superior we can destroy it all simply by our existence. Climate change. On the one hand, we're all capable of being controlled by a central government because none of us are capable of running our own lives. None of us are capable of doing the right thing by everybody else. None of us have the requisite amount of compassion. So we will not be as charitable on our own as a collectivist government would enforce upon us. So on the one hand, we're despicable, we're selfish, we're stupid. On the other hand, there are really smart people capable of inventing machines that will devour us. The conflicts that exist in liberalism confuse the people that believe in this stuff. I can tell you that not once in my life have I spent a microsecond worrying about whether or not machines are going to take over my life or devour me. Bill Gates, Stephen Hawking, Elon Musk, it seems it's the rage. The rage of today is the panic that artificial intelligence, we got to get a handle on it right now. We better start doing legislation. That means laws in Congress. We better start limiting what AI can do. Otherwise, it's going to devour us. This is an accepted scientific reality that we can't compete with the machines that we would invent. We can't compete and survive a war against the machines that we invent and create and program. What must life be like if you believe things like this? To think so little of yourself, and then at the same time think you're better and smarter than everybody else. My point is, don't worry about AI. Don't worry about Siri taking control of your car and driving you off a cliff. Don't worry about any of that. Worry about the artificial intelligence, the artificial education, and the mind-numbed robots that American education is creating today. That's why it's never going to happen. That's why California's never going to secede. The Democrat Party's never going to let it. The Democrat Party wouldn't dare let that. 55 electoral votes, that changes everything. Totally changes everything. There's another reason. California doesn't have any water of its own if it doesn't snow in the Sierra. L.A. is a desert. If they can't cajole, purchase, or convince people to share water with them, they're parched. Well, it's the truth. You know, when I lived in Sacramento, that was an ongoing joke between people living in the northern half of the state and the southern half. The northern half of California is always reminding Los Angelinos, you think you're better than us, but without us, you got no water. You dry up and you're gone. Major source of water in Los Angeles, what is it? Colorado River, exactly right. Where's the Colorado River? Well, it's not Los Angeles, I'll tell you that. The primary source for water in San Francisco is Hetch Hetchy, which is an aquifer, which is underneath there. If they don't, in their usual drought years, if California is its own nation, they have to fight their own wars. Somebody could decide to invade California. What if the North Koreans wanted to invade California? California would have to come up with its own defense. Do you think the U.S., you think Trump would help defend California? These are all academic questions. This is never going to happen because of the 55 electoral votes of Democrat and all the fundraising. Hell, what percentage do you think of total Democrat fundraising comes from San Francisco, Silicon Valley, and Los Angeles? They're never going to do anything that will result in California being... I mean, I guess you could have foreign contributions from a foreign country to launder the money through China, Charlie Tree's Chinese restaurant chain, like the Clintons did. But it'll never happen for the water reasons and for the electoral votes reasons and the campaign donations and contributions and money reasons. But nevertheless, there are some Californians so freaked out over Trump winning that they're flirting with it. There's big news here regarding climate change and the Trump administration. This is the New York Times today, and I really only need to read you the first paragraph. President Donald J. Trump is expected to sign an executive order today to roll back most of President Obama's climate change legacy, celebrating the move as a way to increase the nation's energy independence and to restore thousands of lost coal mining jobs. And they're doing it. Spicer just announced it at the White House in the press briefing. They're going to do it. Roll back Obama's climate change rules, which will promote energy independence, and it will restore jobs in the coal industry. The second paragraph, New York Times story, but energy economists say the expected order falls short of both of those goals, in part because the United States already largely relies on domestic sources for the coal and natural gas that fires most of the nation's power plants. Not just the nation's power plants, domestic sources for the coal that supplies the power for most of the electric cars in America. You electric car drivers, you do know that you may as well have a coal-fired furnace in there. No, Mr. Limbaugh, no, our cars are clean energy, renewable energy. We have batteries in our cars, Mr. Limbaugh. You can't. Well, yeah, I understand that, but where do you think those batteries, when you go fill up or charge the batteries, where's that power come? Wind and solar? No, it doesn't come from wind. There's not enough power generated by a wind farm or a solar panel or array to charge your car inside of a week. Is that right, Mr. Limbaugh? Pretty damn close. So, where does my energy come from for the battery? It comes from power plants who burn coal. I don't think most of these people know that. I think they've bought this renewable clean energy stuff. They probably think their electric cars have a way of converting energy so that it's constantly reused and that they are a net gain on energy independence as it's been presented to them. So, look, these are the kind of things that Trump is continuing to do. The expansion, 3 different factory expansions, Ford Motor Company, the economy rolling, Conference Board Consumer Index way, way up. Job creation is on the march, and it's real. The stock market is continuing to, it's a couple blips here, but the stock market is back on an upward track. And all of this is providing consternation for Democrats as they conduct their postmortems and they're looking into the polling data. Politico story today, Democrats burned by polling blind spot. As they investigate the forces behind the party's stunning losses in November, Democrats are coming to a troubling conclusion. The party didn't just lose among white voters, rural white voters on Election Day. It may have failed to capture them in its pre-election polling as well. Now, because you listen to this program, this Politico story is day-old news. We told you about this yesterday, about how these mainstream media polling outfits do not find Trump voters where they live because they don't go there. They have no desire to go to second and third tier suburbia, fourth tier suburbia, which is actually, you're getting into rural when you talk about fourth tier suburbia, fourth tier urban. They don't go there. They wouldn't be caught dead there. If the Democrat Party announces, as they did in November of 2011, if the Democrat Party announces that the white working class vote is no longer part of the Democrat coalition, then the pollsters are not going to bother talking to them. Because the pollsters are out to find out what's best for the Democrat Party, what's best for Obama, what will work for Obama, what would hurt Obama. And when they see the Democrat Party abandoning rural white voters, white working class voters, they don't poll them. And that's where the Trump voters reside, in part. And so the Democrat polling totally missed them. Now, the interesting thing about this story is that it indicates that deep down the Democrats understand they lost not because of the Russians. That's just a media narrative that is a sleight of hand to disguise why they lost. Don't forget, the Democrat Party, since the midterms beginning in 2010, has lost. The official number's around 1,200 elected seats in the House and the Senate and in the governor's offices, state legislatures. It is a Democrat bloodbath to the point they only now control the governorship and legislative majorities in 5 states. 45 states either are mixed or it's 36 states under Republican control. The Democrats have just been shellacked. It's not just Obama's presidential victories have masked this. The Democrat Party has been able to point to the Obama presidential victories, say everything looked good, everything's fine and dandy, we're cleaning up here. But everywhere else you could vote against Democrats, people did. The reason they didn't vote against Obama, it's not hard, it's the racial component. Because everywhere else, people have abandoned the Democrat Party in droves, to the point the Democrat Party geographically is a regional party. And so the pollsters don't even bother to go outside cities, large, small, medium-sized. They never, ever go to rural America or even small-town America. It doesn't exist. It's not important to them. The media capitals, the national capital, Silicon Valley, that's where things are. Boston, that's where the intelligence of the nation is. That's where the elites are. And they are who matter. And the Democrats have figured this out. The party didn't just lose among rural white voters on Election Day. It may have failed to capture them in its polling as well. Many pollsters and strategists believe that rural white voters, particularly those without college degrees, eluded the Democrat Party's polling altogether. And their absence from poll results may have been both a cause and a symptom of Trump's upset victory over Hillary Clinton in several states. Determining what exactly happened is one of the most pressing problems facing the out-of-power party. In order to win those voters back or figure out a future path to victory without them, party strategists say they first need to measure the size of that rural and working-class cohort. And so they've hired somebody called Clarity Campaign Labs in Washington. And this guy, John Hagner, said that 2016 taught the party a hard lesson about polling in the Trump era. The folks who would talk to a stranger about politics just are not representative of people who wouldn't. In other words, Trump people don't talk to pollsters, didn't trust them, didn't talk to them, rejected any entreaties by pollsters, and therefore the pollsters got flawed data. Did you happen to see 60 Minutes on Sunday? This is one of the most delicious moments. The sanctimonious Scott Pelley. You ever seen this guy? I don't know that he's ever used the muscles in his face necessary to smile. Or if he has, it looks really weird. It looks artificial. I don't think this guy is so dead serious. Donald Trump is destroying the United States. State by state, policy by policy. Anyway, I did a segment of fake news. And you could tell that the premise was that it is stupid, uneducated conservatives that fall for it. And that's the problem. And that's why we got to get rid of Fox News, and that's why we got to get rid of talk radio, because Fox News and talk radio are fake news, and they're feeding fake news to these idiots that make up their audience. And so they talk to some firm, some group that has been analyzing fake news for a while now. Probably just a bunch of guys, running a little scam here, studying. I mean, anybody could study fake news. But these guys told Scott Pelley something he couldn't believe. College-educated liberals fall for it, too. His mouth almost fell open in shock, dismay, and sadness. Really? Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Fake news. It's effective with everyone. Even college-educated liberals use it. Yes, Mr. Pelley. College-educated liberals are at the top of the group that fall for fake news. Mr. Pelley, everybody falls for it. That's a shocking revelation for us here at 60 Minutes. Yes, I know, but it's true. They really believe that fake news. And the problem with it is that idiotic, dumb, farmer-hick conservatives are the only ones that fall for it. And the fake news they fall for is always fake news about Democrats, fake news about Obama, fake news about Democrat policies. It's the same thing with their polling. They haven't the slightest idea where Trump voters actually are. And when they find out, they don't care to go there. This story is about how they are realizing this. And I'm telling you, the real takeaway here, I don't know whether the Politico intended this or not, but this is a very detailed story. And its existence is proof the Democrats really know they lost the election. They really know Russian collusion had nothing to do with this. They really know that a group of Americans did not vote for them on purpose because this particular group of Americans who used to vote Democrat, white working class people, abandoned them. And they ran straight to Donald Trump. Not because the Russians told them to, not because the Russians tricked them. The Democrats are trying to find out what they did wrong. I don't know that they can do that and stick with that long enough. They don't have the ability to blame themselves. But this story indicates that all this Russia stuff is just a bunch of hooey. We'll take a break. We'll be back. You know, there's a thing called location fee that the moving owner has to pay to the other league owners. Do you know what this location fee is going to end up being for Mark Davis, who owns the Raiders? He's going to have to pay every other owner $11 million. The St. Louis Rams had a huge relocation fee when they abandoned the St. Louis market for Los Angeles. And it actually, when you have it explained to you what the purpose of the location fee is, it's about, okay, this owner's going from a small market to a large market. We are allowing it to happen, so he's going to share with us some of the increased revenue moving to a bigger market gets. That's part of it. St. Louis, much larger market than is St. Louis, for example. Now, Oakland, Vegas, something to that. But $11 million for each owner, at least that's the latest calculation. It's not chump change. Plus, Vegas is going to contribute $750 million to stadium, which they hope to have completed in 2019 or 2020. So the Raiders announced yesterday they're going to move to Vegas in 2 or 3 years, while at the same time urging fans to come out and support us in Oakland while you have a chance. I want to see how that's going. There's another thing here, too. NFL TV ratings were down 9% last year. Despite the rebound during the playoffs, NFL ratings down for the first time in a long time. And they never really fully understood why. They researched it. They studied it. They think it's too many commercial breaks. They think it's too many games. Sunday night, Sunday afternoon, Monday night, Thursday night. They think games are too slow. The replays, too. All of these things that used to never contribute to bad ratings, now they're all saying do. I don't think that is it. I think they're missing the elephant in the room as to why TV ratings are down. But beyond that, let me ask a question. In 1 year, maybe say 2 if you want to. Well, it's actually 1 year, but it's you get 3 teams relocate. You have St. Louis Rams moving to Los Angeles, San Diego Chargers. And the way to put this, St. Louis Rams abandon St. Louis. The San Diego Chargers leave San Diego. And now the Oakland Raiders leave Oakland. In the case of San Diego and Oakland, 2 storied, multi-decade NFL franchises pulling up roots in the midst of TV ratings being down. What does this say about the game's overall popularity if these owners are being forced to move because in Oakland they can't get a new stadium built that will generate the revenue that, say, they can generate in Texas or in New York or with new stadiums such as in Atlanta or wherever? But what about the fan base? It's not the fans' fault that there's not a new stadium built in Oakland, but it's the fans of the Oakland Raiders. And this is the second time they've been dropped at the altar. Al Davis moved to L.A. once, then back to Oakland. San Diego stadium issue. Problem. Voters would not vote. You know how they got it in Vegas? Hotel tax. The people that visit Vegas are going to be paying for the Las Vegas Raiders stadium, in part. But then there's this. In addition to the abandonment of 3 markets, does that happen in leagues that are overwhelmingly loved and popular? But now you're going to have 21 to 28 to 33-year-old young men, married or single, doesn't matter. They're going to have 6 months a year off, 6 months a year on working in Las Vegas with strippers, strip clubs, gambling, adult beverages. Is the Las Vegas team going to be able to field a team every Sunday? There'll be a number of different, shall we say, metrics that we can use to gauge whether or not to move to Las Vegas. Imagine the visiting teams going into Las Vegas. Take your average. What team has the most arrested players on it? Take them to Vegas the Saturday night before the game. No, it might be Cincinnati. I think it's always going to be Cincinnati. Maybe not lately, but at a league average, Cincinnati has the most arrested players, most players serving jail time in the offseason. Anyway, take your pick. I mean, you want to say the Giants, I don't know. But take your average NFL team to Vegas as the road team. The road teams always go in on the night, the day before the game, but teams on the East Coast, when traveling to the Western time zone, sometimes leave on Friday to adjust to it. And the players obviously are going to be lobbying for this, so you have maybe 2 nights if you're the Patriots. Don't forget that Belichick will have them under lock and chain. But the Jets, the Fish have South Beach. I mean, they're used to this, the Dolphins. So you put your average team in there in a road game Friday night, Saturday night, a game on Sunday. They're overnight, 2 nights in Las Vegas. These are young guys that have more money than they've ever dreamed of having in their lives. Coaches and managers, I can't tell my players what to think or what to do. That was a reaction to Kaepernick. I mean, it's the millennial generation. You don't tell them what to do now. It's not like football coaches in the old days ran boot camps. Don't do that anymore. But the NFL, there was a time. The NFL, no way. We're not even going to let you fly over Las Vegas on your way to Oakland or Seattle. Such as the stench of gambling there. Now, they're going to have a team located in the legal gambling capital of the United States, the legal strip club capital of the United States. This may do wonders for NFL ratings. The stuff that happens off the field, stuff that makes the news before the game's even played. Well, then add to the drama of what happens on the field after all this off-field stuff, which is going to happen. It's guaranteed. Here's Amy. We head back to the phones. Amy, Colorado Springs, welcome to the EIB network. Hi.
Hi, Rush. Such an honor to speak with you. Just a quick comment about Koppel's interview with Hannity and how he thought that talk radio was bad for America.
Right.
And I have to tell you, I grew up a Rush baby. I listened to Rush to you all the time with my dad in the car, one of my favorite memories with him. And I don't see how conservatism, how the Constitution can be bad for our country. The kids in school now, I have a little 10-year-old, and they just don't learn what I used to learn, what they need to learn about our country. And so I thank you every day for what you do.
Thank you. First off, have you gotten for your kids the Rush Revere Time Travel Adventures with Exceptional Americans book series on American history?
You know, I haven't. I've been meaning to look it up on Amazon.
Well, then you hang on here because I'm going to send you a set for. Do you have a 10-year-old? You said.
Yes, sir.
Perfect. absolutely perfect. These books are written specifically for the circumstance you just described. Your kids are not learning what you did about America. And
well, thank you so much, Rush.
Your child, if your child is like many who've read these books, they're going to love reading them. It's because the books use time travel and a talking horse to take the reader back to these great moments in American history and immerse them there. It's not just these events recited and you learn them with memorization, but the reader is actually taken there and is part of the story with other students at a school that time travel with the teacher, which is Rush Revere. So it's been wonderful. It's exceeded our desires and our hopes and our expectations. We've got an entire Facebook page and website for Rush Revere, and it's great. So let me send you those 5 books first. So don't hang up when we're finished. Now, your question is just drenched in common sense. What in the world is un-American about conservatism? How can Ted Koppel, how can any of these people say that believing in conservatism is bad for America? Here's what he means, and he's not alone. This is what they all mean. In 1995, Amy, Time magazine ran a cover story with me on the cover, Is Rush Limbaugh Bad for America? This has been a theme of the media since this program began in 1988. And the key to understanding this is what Ted Koppel told Sean. Sean said, you think I'm bad for America? And Koppel said, yeah, because what you've done, you attract people who think ideology is more important than fact. Now, when I say that to you, Amy, let me just run a little test here. Ted Koppel says, yes, you people in talk radio are the problem because you attract people to whom ideology means more than facts. How would you interpret that? What do you think he means by that? There's no wrong answer. It's not a test. I'm just curious how you react when you hear that.
I think what he means is that, people on the right they're misled easily without facts. So, it's easy to push an ideology on us, people like me that are listening, without backing it up. And that's wrong, because that's what the liberal media does every single day.
Yeah, that's right. You see, you're really close. You're so close, there's no space. Here's what he means. In Ted Koppel's world, liberalism is not an ideology. Liberalism is simply the way normal people think and act. There's no ideology to it. They are pure. It is as natural as air and water. Conservatism to them is abnormal, perverse, perverted, unnatural, and is not based in any fact, because if it were, conservatism wouldn't exist. Now, this construction that they have, you have to, liberals believe that reality is something that you and me make up to leave them out of it. They think that conservatism is unnatural and perverted, that they are normal and natural. And what he means is that they, on the left, they simply tell you the facts of things and they tell you the truth of things. And what we do, we don't tell you any of that. We just preach conservatism to you. And your loyalty is to conservatism and principle, not fact. And therefore, they think we are miseducating you, maleducating. We are not telling you the truth about things because we need you to be conservative. It's all rooted in the fact that they don't think liberalism is an ideology, and therefore they don't see any competition here. They just see a sickness and a perversion that people like me and Hannity are responsible for. Whereas the truth of the matter is that on this program, and Koppel also he said that these programs don't present both sides, we just hear one side of things. Not true. In explaining everything, I explain the liberal thinking on everything better than the liberals do. I explain it more honestly than they do. People like you who listen to this program understand liberalism and the liberal take on any issue much better than they do from the drive-by media or any other, because those people lie about what they believe. Those people don't tell you the full truth about what they believe. Like Obama did not tell you your premiums are going to rise. Obama did not tell you you were going to lose your doctorate. He told you the exact opposite. Obama does not tell you anything that he really intended to do. He wouldn't have gotten elected. They don't think that's an ideology. They think that's just fact and what you have to do, because people are dumb and stupid and have to be led because people are incapable of living their own lives and making their own minds up. We don't think that. We think you're perfectly fine. We love you to make up your own mind, make your own judgments, because we trust you. It's contra everything they believe. So we constitute a threat, because what we actually do is blow holes through their facts, and we illustrate how their facts are largely a bunch of lies in many cases. And that's what he's upset about. And you instinctively know this, because you know that you're not here because of ideology. You're not listening to me because I'm conservative. You're listening to me because you think what happens here is the truth. You hear the truth about liberalism, whatever the issue is. If it's Obamacare, if it is tax cuts, whatever the issue is, I deconstruct the liberal thinking on it. Climate change. They lie to you about it. They lie to you about every aspect. They make up this thing called a consensus of scientists. I tell you why they think what they think, what they don't think. I tell you why they feel what they feel, what they're trying to accomplish with this, which is what they try to accomplish with everything, more control over as many people as they can. And you, I'm sure, listen to this program because A, it's entertaining and informative, and B, you actually do have what you believe affirmed here, but at the same time, you learn why you're conservative. You're able to learn to defend it and explain it, and you understand how liberalism is actually a problem. This is all the kind of thing they cover up. I could take this as deep as we want to go, but that's if you just understand, they don't think liberalism is ideology. It's impossible for a liberal to be an ideologue. Liberals are not driven by their ideology. Liberals are driven by purity. Liberals are driven by fact. Liberals are driven by whatever distortions they end up believing to be real. Now, hang on here, Amy, so I can send you this set of books for your 10-year-old, because I guarantee you, going to eat them up. We'll be back. Thanks so much for the call. Chuck Schumer got mad that the wife of some guy he knew in there voted for Trump. Who was this? This was, Joseph Califano. I've heard from Joe Califano. It was way back, well, I forget what it was about now, but he was a Democrat. He was Jimmy Carter's Secretary of Health, Education, and Welfare. That's what it used to be called. It's now Health and Human Services. Joseph Califano Jr., HEW is what it used to be back in Carter's day, and he was the secretary of that. His wife, he was also domestic policy advisor to LBJ. Joseph Califano he's a mature individual, and his wife is named Hillary. She's the daughter of William Paley. You know who William Paley is? William Paley is a former cigar store owner in Philadelphia, well, the son of a cigar store, corner cigar store in Philadelphia, who ended up creating the CBS broadcast network. William S. Paley. A guy named Dr. David Sarnoff created NBC, and a guy named Leonard Goldenson created ABC. But it was William Paley. He had a number of wives, one of them named Babe, who was a famed New York socialite. And she did her own thing with Paley in tow or not. By then, he didn't care. But she got their name in the paper all the time, so he was cool with that. There's now the Paley Center for Broadcasting out in L.A. to do some awards from there. What William Paley did, forget what you think of CBS today, what William Paley did is astounding. He had a daughter named Hillary. She's married to Joe Califano, who is easily in his 70s. They were dining at this place in Manhattan last night in the Upper East Side called Set Mezzo, S-E-T-E Mezzo. They don't take credit cards. This place is so exclusive They don't take credit cards. Have you ever eaten at a place, an upscale place, not a McDonald's, that doesn't take credit cards? Are you asking us, well, then how do you pay? Do you have to go in there with wads of cash? No. You pay either by check, but if you pay by check, they probably won't let you in. You have to be approved for a house account. And they send you a monthly bill based on what you have consumed at Set Mezzo. The 21 Club is the same, although they take credit cards there, but Set Mezzo does not, because they don't want to pay anybody 3% or 6%. They want it all. My question is, how can Schumer afford to go in there? This place, well, he makes 100 whatever he makes. Send him, he may be 200. He might be able to afford it twice a year. He's got living expenses in Brooklyn. He's got living expenses in... Anyway, he's in there. And somehow he knew that Califano's wife voted for Trump, and he started screaming at them. Schumer was incensed that Hillary Califano had voted for Trump, even though her husband's a well-known Democrat. One witness said of the restaurant rant, they are a highly respected couple, Califanos. Schumer made a scene yelling, "She voted for Trump! She voted for Trump!" The Califanos left the restaurant to get away from it. Schumer followed them outside like a crazed, deranged member of the Democrat base. And on the sidewalk, Schumer carried on with his rant. "How could you vote for Trump? He's a liar! He's a liar! Trump's a liar! How could you vote for Trump?" The Califanos left. Yeah, I remember the last time I saw Sterling when a Republican voter started yelling at somebody who voted for Obama. You remember that, don't you? It was, yeah, some Republican. Actually, it didn't happen. That's why I don't remember it. There is no such story. Because Republicans do not act like insane people in public. In public. They're not right, folks. They are not right, these Democrats. They have a sickness. There is something that has overcome them. Okay, there's a new iOS beta I have to install, so I'm going to take a break. We'll come back and we'll continue after this. That the poor were getting away with not paying their fair share, that they were just takers. And there was outrage. People didn't associate April Fools with it. Well, from the New York Post is a story. European country imposes social parasite tax on the poor. European nation has decided to tax the poor years later, acting on my proposal. See, you hang around long enough, it comes true. Not just the poor, but the unemployed. Cool. The country's president, Alexander Lukashenko, who has yet to be poisoned by Putin with polonium-210, but that's going to happen, has said that it's a $233 tax here, folks, $200 a month wages in Belarus. That's the equivalent in dollars is $233. That's what the average Belarusian makes in a month. And the president, Alexander Lukashenko, not to be confused with Viktor Yevtushenko, who was poisoned with polonium-210. You know, do you remember that? Remember this guy? He had a drink. He's a Putin critic. Hang on, I got to enter my IDs. Okay, beta installed. Cool. He was a Putin critic, I think formerly of the KGB. And he was having tea in some upper crust London hotel with some former spies. And he had tea, and somehow they snuck just a drop of the stuff into his tea. And he was in the hospital, progressively dying for 6 weeks. It's equivalent to radiation poisoning. Polonium-210, maybe it's polonium-210, 211, 210B, whatever it is. It's derivative uranium. And if they put it in you, And it literally a drop. That's all it takes. And he knew who did it. He knew they were associates with Putin. Putin, of course, denied it, said he never heard of the guy. But they chronicled his death every day in the London papers. But back to the story about taxing the unemployed. Some Belarusians have taken to the streets saying it's a step too far by Lukashenko, who has ruled Belarus since 1994. This weekend, around 400 people were arrested in the capital city of Minsk as protesters tried to hold a forbidden demonstration against the new law. First signed into law 2015, the presidential decree number 3, guess there haven't been many presidential decrees, is more widely known as the Sponger. More widely known as the spongers or freeloader tax, proposed fining people if they had not worked for 6 months. It's not, you have to be progressively unemployed and not looking too hard for a job, and they're going to start fining you for being unemployed. The government says the protesters were not peaceful, and petrol bombs and arms-laden cars were found nearby. At the time, Lukashenko said that the tax would stimulate able-bodied citizens to engage in labor activity, that's work, for those of you in Rio Linda, and fulfill the constitutional obligation to participate in financing state expenditures. Failure to pay the unemployment tax or take on menial work that pays a pittance could ultimately send Belarusians to jail. Sounds like our health care plan. Sounds like the original form of health care, the Pelosi fine. If you didn't pay it, there was jail time. You may not know this, folks. There was jail time in an early version of Obamacare. In fact, it may still be there, as the secretary shall determine. See, the new law harks back to the criminal offense of social parasitism that was on the statute books during the Soviet era to punish people who intentionally don't work. All right, be honest. How many of you are kind of digging this? No, you don't have to admit it to anybody but you and me, and I can't hear you. You can just nod your head out there as you're listening to the radio. I mean, it doesn't sound punitive to me. Give people 6 months to find a job. You're not going to pay them whatever for 4 years not to work. If they don't get a job in 6 months, they have to pay you because you're not going to let them become social parasites on the government system, known as spongers or freeloaders. This is what it was in the old Soviet Union, and the Democrats loved this place. Okay, Italy. Italy could soon become the first Western country to offer paid menstrual cycle leave for female workers. This will no doubt create protests among the LGBT community, in which there are transgender men who claim that the addictomy nevertheless maintains the menstrual cycle and that they should get the leave as well. We'll let the Italians deal with that. We are successfully exporting liberalism. Folks, this is one of my long-held stratagems. Those of you who have been listening to this program for a long time will recognize this. I haven't mentioned this in a while, but I've thought one of the ways that we can counter economic competition from all over the world, like from the Chi-Coms or from the Japanese, would be to export liberalism. So there's like export feminism, export labor unions, export this kind of stuff, family leave, paid medical family. You know, let these nations suffer the pain that America suffers with all this left-wing gobbledygook that is smothering our society and damaging competition and competitiveness. And it looks like the Italians here are taking the lead, because I think that once they get a taste of this, that this is going to look attractive. Well, it's a poor choice of words. Once they get a load of this, the feminists and the leftists in our country are going to say, why didn't we think of this? Menstrual cycle leave. That's once a month. That could be a week a month. Paid leave. So they're going to try it in Italy. It's being debated right now in the country's parliament. If passed, it would mandate that companies enforce a menstrual leave policy and offer 3 paid days off each month to working women who experience painful periods, which they all would, by definition. Health experts and local media outlets have praised the proposal. Of course they have, saying it was a step in the right direction and would shed light on the silent plight of women suffering from debilitating cramps that can sometimes affect their ability to work. The Italian version of Marie Claire described it as a standard bearer of progress and social sustainability. However, the bill has critics, including women who fear this sort of measure could backfire and end up stigmatizing them. You think? You think it could? What do you mean? Who would ever say anything about? If you get 3 days off every month, is not everybody going to know why? Women are going to start getting roses when they have the cramps. Men are going to reach out, try to show their sensitivity and understanding, but it would become stigmatized. And then the men's rights activists are going to want to get in on this somehow and find a way to equalize it. What would the equivalent be? The women get menstrual cycle leave. Well, no, the men don't have to deal with it because the women are gone. I mean, that's exactly right. You know what's going to happen with this? Here's exactly what's going to happen. This is going to pass, and in Italy, women who work are going to get 3 days every month for menstrual leave. However, the actual cycle is not the worst aspect of it. It is the premenstrual period, PMS, that leads to the real problem, is it not? I, on this program, long ago suggested, when Women in Combat was proposed, that we have a battle-ready battalion of All-American 1st Cavalry Amazon Battalion, and you house them in such a way that whenever you need them, there is a portion of them that are always on the cycle. So you would have a battle-tested... But that's above and beyond this. The next phase of this, well, it's not just the 3 days. What about the period beforehand, which is often worse, some activists will say. And the Italians will accede to this. And so the menstrual cycle leave will end up being a week to accommodate the premenstrual period and the actual menstrual period. And I'm telling you, this is going to spread. And wait till they find a way to blame the employer for this happening in the first place, or men in general. Writing in Donna Moderna, another women's magazine in Italy, Lorenza Pluteri argued that if women were granted extra paid leave, employers would be even more reluctant to hire women in a country where women already struggle to integrate the workforce. In fact, due to enduring cultural stereotypes, Italy has one of the lowest rates of female labor participation in the workforce, with a staggering 25% of women getting fired just before or just after getting preggers, according to the Italian National Institute for Statistics. Do you think this is the first place to have discussed or instituted this? Well, it isn't. Menstrual leave is already a legal right for women in South Korea and Japan, where it was made law 60 years ago. A number of private companies, including Nike, have already introduced a similar policy. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Menstrual cycle paid leave in Italy, only a matter of time before it hits the United States en masse. And you're the first Miriam that I've heard from in a long time, so it's great to have you here.
Rush, what an honor to speak with you. I was just calling you to inform you that last night the City Commission named our town, the city of West Palm Beach, as Sanctuary City.
Yeah, you know, I'd heard about that city of West Palm Beach, which many of us have to drive through to get to where we're going. Has in fact named itself a sanctuary city. This is a liberal anger reaction to the Trump administration. It's one of defiance. They're openly asking people, inviting people to violate the law. They are violating the law, and they are daring the Department of Justice and the Immigration Services to react to them.
They sure are. I mean, they're calling it the welcoming city. That's what they call it.
Right, welcoming city. They want to be known as a welcoming city. They want to be known as a target. They want to be known as a place where they'll be safe and protected and so forth. Illegal immigrants and refugees. Were you aware, Miriam, before this happened, that it was being debated and being contemplated, or did it catch you by surprise?
Well, I actually was last night at the city hall where they were having this meeting. I attended the meeting last night at the city hall.
Was the public allowed to comment on this?
Yes.
Did you?
I don't think that there was not a lot of, news out there about it, but there were a group of us that were there opposing this designation.
That didn't matter.
I didn't think, no.
They were going to pass this anyway. Who is the mayor of West Palm Beach? Who is it now?
Jerry.
Yeah, right. Jerry Murillo is the mayor. Yeah, it used to be Lois Frankel. The city was a lot more fun when Lois Frankel was mayor. It was screwy. It was crazy. It was wacko leftist. But at least you could run into her at dinner. She'd follow you into Sprinkles, get ice cream. What are you going to do? It's just another reason not to stop as you're driving through. I'm joking about that. But seriously, this is a bunch of leftists and a bunch of Democrats trying to react in a show of defiance. And it's social protest and so forth, based in compassion and humanity. Let me ask your people a question. Seriously, Miriam, thanks for the call. In terms of having America be great, and I'm not playing off Trump. I'm talking about just, we all want the United States to be what it became, the greatest nation on earth, and primarily because of our founding documents and the acknowledgement in our founding documents that we are free, and the acknowledgement that that freedom is part of our creation by God, that it is not because of decree from human beings. Our freedom doesn't come from any individual or group of individuals proclaiming we're free. We're born that way. It's established in our founding documents. United States became the greatest nation on earth in any way you want to measure greatness. Economic output, freedom, creativity, happiness, pursuit of happiness, contentment. There was nowhere close. There was nothing like the United States ever. There still isn't, in many regards. Now, the pro-illegal immigration group will tell you We are a nation of immigrants, and we are a melting pot, and our greatness lies in our diversity, and our greatness, therefore, is ensured by all of this illegal immigration. How many of you agree with that? Forget the law for a minute. Just forget, do you believe that massive numbers of people coming to this country, legally or illegally, contribute to American greatness? See, I happen to not believe that. The left wants you to believe that the United States does not have a cornered market on making nations great, that we kind of stumbled into it, and in many cases our greatness is because we've so mistreated many people around the world. That our greatness is not just and earned, and that it really isn't greatness, that we're imperialistic, that we've stolen all the things we have from other people around the world. And that's one of the reasons we need to let them all back in, because it's really theirs, and we've stolen from them, and they want an opportunity to reclaim what was once theirs. Kind of like the rich getting rich by stealing from them. And it's, of course, it's bogus. Diversity in a Democrat's definition is skin color, sexual orientation, and gender. And the more diverse all of that is, the so-called greater the country is, and it's bogus. But the left and the Democrat Party, aside from their desires to register these people as voters, which is really, really what this is all about, in their attempt to sell it, do try to tell people that this is how we became great. America is a nation of immigrants. Now, what they want you to believe is a nation of illegal immigrants, and that the illegal immigrants are actually indicative of the future of this country. How many of you people believe in that in principle? They're gaining in number. The Federal Trade Commission tracks this kind of data. They report more Americans claimed being a victim of these kinds of scams than ever before in 2016. Online imposter claims to be a government official that's designed to get your attention and scare you so that you do whatever they tell you to do to get off their radar. And there's a link in there, and you click on it, and you've just sent access to your computer to whoever is scamming you. Online thieves are resourceful. The software graphics they use to pretend to be an IRS official or some other government post, very sophisticated. It's easy to be duped if you're not aware of who's really behind these scams. It's easy to be duped if you're not aware these scams exist. And folks, this is just another reason why we recommend LifeLock here. LifeLock software programs are constantly monitoring the internet, scanning billions of transactions every day, looking for evidence of foul play and ways to protect their clients from it. Now, when LifeLock finds something suspicious, they alert you of a possible problem, and you determine if you're subject to fraud or not. Let me give an example. You join LifeLock and you give them your social security number and your credit card account numbers. You can do this with total trust. They then create a file for you, essentially, that monitors your online activity with your credit cards and if you do online banking. And after a while, there's a profile and a graph or chart of normal behavior of yours is created. And if there are any deviations in it, including lack of activity or increased activity, then that gets flagged at the LifeLock computers and you get an alert. And you are asked if this increased activity, for example, did you just spend X amount of dollars buying something that we haven't seen you buy before? It's not that specific, but this is how they track it down. And if whatever they found is not you, then you respond to the alert, say, no, it's not me. And they jump into action to shut down that transaction if they can. If it's not you, you tell them. Or if it is you, you tell them it's you, and they go away and nothing happens. Now, there are a lot of people that try to do this. A lot of companies, credit agencies try to do this. Nobody comes anywhere near LifeLock's ability to do it. Now, no one company can spot every example of this. Nobody can prevent all identity theft, but LifeLock's the best. Here's the thing. If you happen to defraud yourself, if you fall for one of these scams, or if you end up being defrauded, LifeLock has a staff of people that does nothing but fix it for you. They take on whatever has happened and they put you back together so that your identity is restored intact, and whatever damage has happened, if there's restoration, they try for that. And there's nobody that does this. Sign up today to protect yourself. Plans at LifeLock start at $9.99 a month. You can use my name, save 10% when you sign up. Go to lifelock.com or call them 800-440-4833. That's simple. LifeLock, 800-440-4833. And remember to use my name as the offer code. This is Karen in Henderson, Nevada, which is Las Vegas.
Rush.
How are you, Karen?
I'm fine. It's an honor to speak with you.
Thank you.
I was going to mention earlier in the show talking about how Ford's going to come to the Michigan plant. Mm-hmm. I just think it's so great for America to have that opportunity to have more jobs. But also at the same time, I'm kind of nervous about the electric car thing. Because,
you mean Ford?
We were always Ford Mercury drivers. And when they went with all the electric cars during Obama administration, there was a whole bunch of us that got X'd because there's actually a really large group that's fans of the Mercury Ford, and they don't make them anymore. They just stopped making them. And we still have ours. Ours is 14 years old.
Okay, now wait. I want to make sure I understand. There's the Ford brand, there's a Lincoln brand, there used to be a Mercury brand. Are you talking about the brand, or are you talking about a vehicle called the Ford Mercury?
I'm talking about like the Mercury Cougar, the Mercury Grand Marquis.
Right. And
they don't make those anymore. They stopped making them, and I think part of it was they were influenced by the Obama administration.
Why?
I think they just wanted to get the electric go green stuff going, and they used Ford to get them in there. But they actually X'd a bunch of us when they did that.
By X'd, you mean eliminated you as customers because you didn't want to buy it if it didn't say Mercury on it.
Yeah, because like I said, we've been driving the same car for 14 years.
What did you like about the Mercury as opposed to the Lincoln version of the car or the Ford version of the car?
What is that?
Well, let me use General Motors as
okay.
This is, in fact, going way, way back here to the 70s and 80s. I think this is when General Motors got in trouble. Yeah. There was the Chevrolet Camaro and the Pontiac Firebird. And they were the same car.
Yes. Okay.
The exact same car, the same engine. They just had little different grills. The Pontiac had a little different look than the Camaro did. But they were general. The Impala had a Buick version. They didn't call it the Impala; it was the Buick, whatever it was. And every General Motor car, other than the even some of the Cadillacs, looked like the Chevrolets and the Buicks.
Okay.
And they did this because it was much cheaper. If you only have to make one body style for 5 brands, it's much cheaper than designing 5 different body styles and manufacture for different brands and so forth. But the problem with it, I always thought, if you're going to buy, and GM had it tiered. It was Chevrolet, and then Buick, and then Oldsmobile and Cadillac. If you bought an Oldsmobile that looked just like a Chevy, why buy it?
Yes.
And I think you can trace some of General Motors. Well, I thought, doesn't Ford do that? Isn't what it looks like the Ford Falcon? Well, that's old. That doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Pick your favorite Ford car. Isn't there a Mercury version of it, or were they entirely different cars from the Fords?
Well, we were going to do a Lincoln, but even those are no longer being made. So I know our cars we got to about 230, 225, somewhere around there, 1,000 miles. But my husband said they're known to go out around 200. But he's a good car maintenance guy, so we can fixing it.
I'll tell you what this is. This is one of the greatest examples of brand power that I could give you.
Okay.
For some reason, the Mercury brand, you loved it.
Yes.
You trusted it. You believed in it. And
a full steel frame, and I had somebody hit me once. I'm still here.
Yeah, right. And you think in the Ford car you might have been injured.
Yes. Well, when I was coming home this morning after I dropped my husband at work, a person turned right from the inside lane, and boom, he got hit from an oncoming car. The pieces were flying like an explosion everywhere. I'm like, oh, my God. When I buy a car new, I'm buying one huge one.
Car accidents on the EIB network. This is a first. Well, I'm glad you're safe. Does Mercury not make anything that you can buy now that you want to buy?
I have no idea because I just don't know, because the whole car industry, with all the cafe standards.
Okay, so you have a Mercury now, and you're holding it. If you can't buy another Mercury, what are you going to buy?
That's what we don't know, because all the car industry is like, so when we go out of town, we have to rent one, and because I don't know what to do, because they're all like tin cans now.
Well, that's a different story. But Karen, if I were to tell you that the steel and the body and the suspension in your Mercury is identical to what's in a Ford, would you believe me or think I'm wrong?
It's you, I would believe. I would believe you. Absolutely.
Because my point is, you could probably buy a Ford or a Lincoln if it looks enough like the Mercury you liked, and you probably might be getting very close to the same car, even though they might not make it under the Mercury brand anymore. You should look into that. You should.
That's what I'll do then.
Go to a Ford or Mercury. Are Mercury sold at Ford dealerships?
I'm not sure.
Right. It's been a long time since you bought one, because this one's lasted you so long. Well, I appreciate the call. This is fascinating. She's all excited that Ford is expanding, but she can't buy her favored Mercury. This, folks, I'm not kidding. This is a great illustration of the power of branding. Have you ever wondered why people back in the 70s wore two-tone army green leisure suits and thought they looked good? And yet they did. I saw them all over the place. You look at that, where in the world did you buy it? Why when you got up today, did you want to put that? They thought it looked good. You thought it looked bowling alley. They thought it looked good. So taste there's no accounting for it. It's all personal, but the power of branding, particularly when it comes to automobiles, is overwhelming. You go back to the 70s and 80s with that General Motors situation I was describing. Well, literally, folks, the Camaro and Firebird were identical cars. But you'd have the Firebird buyers, the Pontiac. No way am I buying that Camaro. It's the same car. No, it's not. That is a Chevy, and mine is a Pontiac. Brand power is fascinating, and the Mercury brand appeals to Karen here. So, Karen, we'll tell Trump, because he's talking to the Ford people. And if there are enough people here that are interested in the Mercury, Ford's interested in selling them. You never know what's going to happen here. But I predict you're going to be able to find something that's close to what you want, regardless what they do with the brand. I appreciate the call. I really do. We'll be back in just a second. And they put up a billboard. Spicer Green, that's like two last names, Spicer Green Jewelers. And they had a billboard. And the billboard has blue diamond, ruby, emerald, yellow diamond, white gold diamond, all kinds of different stones on there. And the billboard says, sometimes it's okay to throw rocks at girls. You heard about this? This has created a firestorm of controversy. They've had to take the billboard down because the billboard is said to be promoting violence against women. Can you imagine? When I worked in Sacramento, one of the greatest all-time billboards in the history of billboards, KFBK Sacramento, 1530 a.m. And the billboard was a picture of a car radio with push buttons and the AM dial. It was a close-up of and there was a hand with a finger moving to punch one of the buttons. And the billboard said, wouldn't you just love to punch Rush Limbaugh? One of the greatest billboards of all time. Nobody wanted it taken down except because it was promoting me. But nobody thought it was promoting violence. Besides, it was violence against me, which was permissible. And it was a liberal advertising agency that created it. And it was one of a series of 3. The other billboard of note had, they put the billboard up, it was precious, just clean as could be, white, Rush Limbaugh, KFBK, 9 noon. The next day, they painted what looked like a bunch of tomatoes had been thrown at it. Then the next week, they painted a bunch of bananas. But 2 or 3 weeks went by, the whole billboard, you probably couldn't see it because it looked like people had been bombarding it with junk. They said, that doesn't offend you. I said, no, that is creative as it can be. I loved it all. And sometimes it's okay to throw rocks at girls. Spicer Green Jewelers, welcome to Political Correctness 2017. Here's Donald Trump today, just this afternoon, at the EPA.
Today's Energy Independence Action calls for an immediate reevaluation of the so-called Clean Power Plan. Perhaps no single regulation threatens our miners, energy workers, and companies more than this crushing attack on American industry. Second, we are lifting the ban on federal leasing for coal production. Third, we are lifting job-killing restrictions on the production of oil, natural gas, clean coal, and shale energy. And finally, we are returning power to the states where that power belongs. States and local communities know what is best for them.
He just eliminated Obama-era climate change, global warming regulations that the EPA had unilaterally implemented. This is a great day. The left is going to be even more insane, but it's a great day. My friends, insurance companies, people that work there like to use phrases like home invasions to describe a break-in. The fact is, if your home's broken into, you're being robbed. And it leaves a sense of insecurity for a long time afterwards. If it's happened once, it can happen anytime. I mean, that's a violation of most personal nature. It's all the more reason to have a home security system in your home that every family member can use. It's not complicated, but it works. It keeps everybody safe and secure. And at the very definition of its name, the system is made to be easily installed. That's why it's called Simply Safe. The system is made for families to put in themselves, placing the sensors and detectors throughout the home in all the right places. And an HD camera, turn it all on. A base station will report to the cops and the fire department if you want it to. If there's a break-in or a fire, $14.99 a month. No contracts to sign, no site survey, no walls ripped out, no wires run. It's all wireless, Wi-Fi and cellular. State of the art. They're growing by leaps and bounds. They're doing TV commercials now. So proud of SimplySafeUSA.com. That's the website. 10% off when you visit there and purchase something. SimplySafeUSA.com.